The Gatons inquiry into whom knew about the Brittany Higgins allegation in the Prime Minister's office has stalled yet again, and the blokey culture continues unabated. So, does the panel think that the upcoming Women's Summit is for real? Or is it yet again another spin-based delay tactic by our Prime Minister? Thank you.
All right, well, there's a bit in this question. Anne Ruston, Minister, I can see, Grace, you've got your hand up there. Did you want to just add something very quickly before I ask the Minister?
Yeah, I find it very interesting that, you know, it's taken this long for them to figure out, or they haven't even figured out still who did what or who knew what when inside Parliament. I mean, get me in there with a lie detector and I'll tell you within a day.
So this is the Gatons inquiry, just to let people know, looking at who in the Prime Minister's office knew what about the alleged rape of Brittany Higgins. It's been suspended based on advice from the DPP in the ACT. Anne Ruston, do you think we'll ever find out the answer, though, as to who knew what when? And will this report ever be made public, do you think?
Well, look, thanks, David. In answer to Tony's question around why the report is not, or the investigation is not currently on foot, it is because we have been requested not to undertake any further investigations while the police inquiry is underway, and that's the reason why it is stopped at the moment. But I also wanted to absolutely assure Tony and everybody that's listening, and that is that we are absolutely serious about making sure that this National Safety Summit is able to bring together the culmination of all the consultation around getting the information for the next national plan, because as a government I can absolutely commit that we are serious about changing the dial, not just about continuing to support frontline services, but to actually make a difference by stopping domestic violence, family violence and sexual violence before it starts.
Yeah, we're going to come to the summit, but just to be clear, I appreciate it's been suspended based on a request from, or advice from the DPP, but will it ever be made public, do you think?
Well, obviously we have to wait for Brittany's case to go through the appropriate channels, and when it has done that, then obviously that's the time to have these discussions. But obviously at the moment we're operating under the instruction or the request of the police.
Sorry, Grace.
I just have a question. How can this government seriously claim to care about women's safety and children's safety when it won't even be accountable for and swiftly and directly address the issue of sexism within its own ranks?
Penny Wong, let me bring you in here. You've been pursuing this report, which we're yet to see from the head of the Prime Minister's Department, Phil Gatons. Do you accept that they are right to pause it on this request from the DPP or not?
Well, first I just want to say thank you to Grace for her extraordinary advocacy, which I think is helping with many other voices to change the country, and thank you, Marcia, for reminding us of what so much that needs to be done with in our First Nations communities, with our First Nations peoples. Can we just start with why the Gatons report was commissioned in the first place? Because I think that goes to the Prime Minister, to Mr Morrison's sincerity. The Gatons report was commissioned in the first place because the Prime Minister didn't want to just ask his staff who knew what when. So our issue, and I suspect the issue of many men and women around Australia, is that we had an appalling alleged assault in Parliament House. We had, as Ms Higgins said herself, she felt like she was a political problem to be managed. And instead of the government fronting up and trying to deal with this issue honestly and openly, we had a flurry of inquiries, including one which avoided Mr Morrison having to ask his own staff what they knew. And I do not think that meets the sorts of standards that Tony, in the question, and I think more broadly, as the Australian people want.
Reece Kershaw, I'll just get a quick comment from you on this. Are they right to pause this inquiry in your view or not?
Oh, look, there's two processes. We were very concerned to make sure that the police investigation, there was no problematic intersection or attempt to interfere. And we were able to compile that brief of evidence. It now goes into a prosecution phase, which is the director of DPP in the ACT, and that's on him and his advice. So we were able to complete that investigation in the way that we wanted it to be able to do, which was in what we would call a sterile corridor. Which means stopping this inquiry for now. Well, I think the DPP has made that decision, and, yes. and I haven't been consulted or been contacted. So on the other part of the other part of Tony's question is obviously about the summit. Minister, let me come back to you on this. What are the KPIs? Are there any for this summit? What does it need to achieve?
Well, the summit's most important achievement that it needs to achieve is to bring together a culmination of all the consultation, to put on the stage people who are experts so that the Australian public can have the opportunity to come and have a look at the issues that are confronting those people that are trying to deal with family, domestic and sexual violence in our country at the moment. And so the most important thing, I think, is to hear the voices of everybody who wants to be heard. That's why we've made sure that we're live streaming all the panels that are going to be on Monday and Tuesday. We've now we've got a feedback link on our website so that people can provide information about their views, their thoughts, whether it be about the summit or whether it be about their own experiences. But we want to make sure that we have used every tool that we possibly can to get every Australian the opportunity to be able to have their say about this really important issue.
Yeah, well, Penny Wong, is that enough? Is that what this summit should be about, or do you think there should be a higher ambition?
Well, I think there should be a higher ambition, which is achieving change. And I would hope that it's not just words. We can talk about absolutely wanting to do something or absolutely wanting, believing in something, but ultimately the government will be judged on what change ultimately flows from this summit. And I think, my view is, yes, we want the voices of survivors and victims heard. Secondly, we don't just want a to-do list for the states, which is so too, all too often Mr Morrison's, go-to answer, to-do list for someone else. There ought to be a comprehensive response particularly for all the areas for which the Commonwealth has responsibility. And I hope, and I'll defer to Grace and others who have more expertise, but I hope there is a comprehensive response which goes to prevention, early intervention, crisis and recovery. We need a comprehensive response in which the Commonwealth actually steps up to do something.
Grace, Tame, you are going to be involved in this summit. What would you like it to achieve?
Look, I am involved in this summit, and in fact, earlier today I participated in a roundtable discussion. I was one of 49 people, and I was the only lived experience survivor there. So I think that says something about the prioritisation of survivor voices.
What does it say? What does it say?
It says that we're not really being prioritised when you think about it. There was also only one man in 49 people there, and it sort of makes you feel like, all right, well, here are these women's issues, so we'll just make the women deal with them by themselves. Also, the summit is on Monday and Tuesday, and it's only been this week that we've received confirmation of how it's all structured. It's all been quite secretive and confusing in the way that it's structured. And although I am a self-proclaimed optimist and I'm acting in good faith, and I really do believe that any step is a good step, but there was a glaring lack in the discussion today, and that is the focus on prevention. So much of this is reactivity. Let's put a Band-Aid on this. Let's respond to this. Where's the prevention? And I mean, I was in this discussion with people from the sector who are experts, who have been working for decades, who, the work has been done. It's there. There are evidence-based solutions. There are evidence-based methods of prevention that are ready to be implemented. It's just a question of political will, really, at this point.
Well, Minister, let me get your response to, I guess, the criticism and concern raised by Grace Tame there.
Well, obviously, I'm concerned about Grace's comments from today, but what I would say is there are a number of roundtables, and all of them have got different purposes to make sure that we can cover such an extraordinary wide range of different issues that domestic and family and sexual violence needs to cover. Because whilst the first plan was very focused around raising awareness and dealing with domestic violence in probably a much more simplified form, this next national plan has to address all of the complexities that domestic violence, family violence and sexual violence occurs in as we're going forward. We also would, I'd say that we have been very, very conscious around making sure we have heard the voices of people who are victim survivors. Monash University is actually holding dedicated roundtables specifically with victim survivors, many of whom have asked not to be named, and many have asked if they can do it in the privacy of a one-on-one conversation with the consultants. We also, I spoke today with a group of survivors who are participating in the summit on Monday and Tuesday. They've raised a whole heap of really interesting ideas about things that we could do to make sure that the issues that survivors believe need to be embedded in the things that we have to do. And I would go to Penny and say we absolutely do need to move the dial on this. And I pay tribute to the former Prime Minister Julia Gillard when she actually made that really amazing decision to actually put the first plan in place back in 2010. But what we've got now in front of us is an opportunity to build on that work that she put in place in 2010. And you're right, Grace, we absolutely have to make sure that this is not just a talk fest, that things that come out of this summit actually deliver the real change that you're talking about. And that's why we're doing it. But this isn't the end of the conversation about the next plan. This is the end of the consultation, and then we all need to get together and work out, every single person in Australia, about how we are going to collectively and individually make a difference.